Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, actually before we get into today's video, if you like naval history or history in general, then I would encourage you to check out yesterday's video. We went visit the USS Alabama over in Mobile, Alabama, and we recorded while we were there, and she is one fantastic museum ship. She's one of the better preserved museum ships that I have been on. So if you have an interest in that, I would encourage you to check out yesterday's video. The link will be somewhere on screen and in the description or in the comments down below. But moving on to today's video, we are going over 5 more non-premium overpowered ships. So, tech line ships that are a little bit overtuned in my opinion. Now, the ships in this list range from being just a little bit too powerful to being outright broken in my opinion. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with number 5, which is, well, not one ship, but a certain set of ships from a certain line, and that is the mid-tier Italian destroyers. I chose the Turbine here to represent them in this spot on the list because, good God, the Italian DD line does the opposite of what most other lines in this game do. Rather than have a mediocre mid-tier grind, the mid-tier ships and the low-tier ships in this line are absolutely terrifying to run across. With their SAP-equipped guns, these DDs, the alpha these guns can put out is insane. The Turbine here, for example, can consistently chunk other DDs for about 2,500 damage, which is about a fifth of those DDs' HP at that tier. Which means that you're absolutely just destroying these DDs before they have a chance to really do anything. And that's just with the guns, not to mention the torpedoes, which are really solid, along with the speed and the speed boost and the exhaust smoke that they get as well to, well, kind of be little Paulo Emilios where they can rush their target before they really know what's going on. And then, of course, you apply those SAP guns to light cruisers, and well, really any cruiser, like Tier 4, Tier 5. Again, you're chugging for 2,500 HP every salvo, and it's not like that's an insignificant portion of those ships' HP at that tier, especially around Tier 4 to Tier 5. So this is pretty much par for the course from the Tier 4 all the way up to the Tier 7 with the Italian DDs. They are absolutely terrifying, but then the Tier 8, 9, and 10 kind of drops off of it. The Regalo, she got a buff recently to her range, which does definitely help out, but she's still kind of just for her tier compared to these guys. These guys are just absolutely crazy destroyer killers. If you need a DD that just takes the cap and simply murders any other DD that comes across it, that's what these ships are excellent at, and it's pretty much bar none at this point. So, yep, Italian DDs absolutely cracked. Just wonderful DD murderers, in my opinion. Alright, going down to number 4, we have the Tier 8 tech line British battlecruiser, the Hawke. The Hawke, I remember playing this thing when the British battlecruisers came out in early access. They are a wonderful line to go up, and the Hawke, in my opinion, except for, of course, the St. Vincent, is probably the jewel of the line and just one absolutely cracked ship. So, this is a battlecruiser that's, well, it's a battlecruiser, so it's fast, it's very maneuverable. You have 9 16-inch guns at Tier 8 with a 31-second reload time. So, you have some of the biggest guns at Tier 8 on tech line ships, alright? At the cost of a 1 second longer load time than like the North Carolina. But like the North Carolina, you are maneuverable, fast, and you still have torpedoes on top of that. Now, typically with the battle cruisers, you pay for that in the armor department. But from my experience, the armor of the Hawke seems to be that kind of void armor that it's lightly armored, but there's some spaces and some gaps in the armor that just consume the enemy shells. And you don't really get punished too much unless you show perfectly flat broadside to the enemy team. Now, if you do that, then you're going to get clapped. But if you're maneuvering and you're even slightly angled, it seems that you will not necessarily get absolutely deleted, but you'll just, get a little bit of a bite. But you still have a very solid hill to back that up. And not to mention, too, you still have the British battleship AP. So the short fuse AP, that means your 16-inch shells are fantastically effective at absolutely blapping cruisers off of the map. Not to mention, too, you still have pretty darn good HE. It's not quite the British BB-HE, but it is still better HE than most of the other battleships at that tier. So you have all this on a very fast, very maneuverable battle cruiser. Oh, and torpedoes. I forgot to mention the torpedoes. You have torpedoes too on top of this. You have the what do they call them? The gyroscopically guided torpedoes, however you want to call them. They have the silly turning mechanics to where you have the torpedo tubes in the hull, but you can get some better firing angles out of them. And they hit very hard. They are very useful from my experience. And again, all of this is bolted onto a ship that is very maneuverable, very quick. You have an engine boost. You can zip back and forth across the map. You can run around, get the sides of the enemy ships, or just bum rush them and blap them. It's a incredibly powerful Tier 8 battleship. One that is definitely in the more overtuned category, in my opinion, because yes, if you do slip up, you're gonna get blapped and it's gonna hurt. And plus two, it is still a battle cruiser. The armor is still thinner, so you can get farmed out, especially if you have a light cruiser or one of those machine gun DDs that are hiding in the perfect spot. That can still happen. But still, overall, one of the best Tier 8 battleships. I'm saying battleship because it takes up a battleship slot, in my opinion. And that takes us down to number 3, which is where we start getting to the more kind of broken territory with the Tier 10 Soviet light cruiser, the Nevsky. The Nevsky. This is a ship that is the bane of many a player's existence when clan battles and ranked are at Tier 10. Why? The Nevsky is, if you look at her on paper, she's pretty lightly armored except for her midsection. So you might think, oh, okay, it's a light cruiser, you shoot it, it's going to blow up if you can hit it. Well, Nevsky has the benefit of benefiting from the saying, no armor is best armor, but still having enough armor in the midsection to where when she stays angled, she's going to bounce pretty much anything you throw at her. So even though her bow and stern are lightly armored, if you hit her there, you're going to overpin her. When she's angled, her midsection is armored enough to where it's probably going to bounce unless you have a giant gun or something with improved pin angles, or you hit it at just the right angle. So what winds up happening is that the Nevsky will sit usually on the off cap, which that in competitive speak means the cap that your team isn't necessarily going to capture. You're just there to annoy the enemy team. And this is one hell of an annoying ship to try and deal with. So you sit on the off cap. You have like a 22-kilometer range if you build for it. You sit there, you throw the HE that you have at them, which is some pretty good HE. You have the Soviet shell ballistics, which means that these shells are very comfortable to use at longer ranges. They fly through the air quite quickly. They're not like the American HE shells that hang in the air for 6 hours before they come back down and actually hit the target. These are very comfortable guns to fire at 20-something kilometers. And since you have this armor, you just kind of sit angled and you just play with your throttle, and the enemy team usually winds up missing you, or if they do hit you, it either bounces off of your midsection or it hits your bow or stern and you get overpin damage. So nothing really too major there. And that's just playing it as an off-flank kiter. If you actually get closer in the thing, it's even kind of more terrifying. You have radar. You have the Soviet radar, 12-kilometer radar, so if you play near the cap, you got the cap covered in radar. You also have Soviet AP. Despite having light cruiser guns, you have the Soviet bias AP, which means you can absolutely rip most other cruisers and even battleships apart with this AP. That's one thing that you never really want to do, in competitive or in random battles, is slip up and show a Nevsky your broadside when they're within like 15 kilometers, because it's going to swap over to AP and then just start absolutely chewing through your ship. Now, it can't go through like your belt armor, but through your extremities and your upper armor, depending upon how the armor of your ship is laid out, it can and will absolutely chew through that. And if you're a light cruiser or a lesser well-armored ship, it's going to absolutely citadel you, and you're going to be dead before you realize what you did wrong. So the Nevsky is an absolutely terrifying ship when in the proper hands. Of course, if you get caught broadside in it, you're going to get blamped, but a good Nevsky player is just an absolute headache to try and deal with in random's competitive ranked, whatever mode you are in. And that brings us down to number 2, which is the Tier 9 Japanese destroyer, the Kitakaze. Kitakaze is one of the most busted ships in the game. I'm pretty sure Wargaming knows it, but they are doing nothing about it. I remember the last time I heard of a Kitakaze nerf was that they increased her detection range by like 0.2 kilometers or something ridiculous like that didn't even really matter because it's a gunboat and it's either smoked up or behind an island when it's firing. But the Kitakaze is just an absolute machine gun. It is tier for tier better than the Harugamo, absolutely. It's such a sight to see the ship just melt whatever approaches it. It is, shoot, man, capable of definitely murdering any heavy cruiser, light cruiser that tries to push its smoke screen before they get there. It's just such a great farming tool to use against battleships. It's, man, what else can I say about it? It's just a DPM hose. Other DDs get near it and they get spotted, it's going to remove at least half of their HP before they either go undetected or before they can even start firing at it, because it's usually getting either in smoke or in a good spot where it can fire its guns without being detected. And then even when you do get the chance to fire back at it, it's got so much HP because it's such a big DD that unless you're either in another Kitakaze or one of the other just cracked out DPM gunboats, you're not really going to have that much of a chance against it. This is one of the few ships that can like give the French DDs a run for their money in a one-on-one engagement because, again, its DPM is so good. It's, man, it's such a busted ship. It really does need to get, this is one of the few ships on this list that I think absolutely needs to get a major nerf. The other ones, you can adjust them very slightly, and I think they'll be fine. But the Kitakaze, it really needs to be looked at, but they've just let it sit for so long, and they haven't said anything about it being changed, and it's pretty prevalent in this clan battle season. God, man, running into a Kitakaze when you're in a tier 8 ship, it is not fun at all. So, yeah, it's got smoke, engine boost, its torpedoes can use the torpedo reload consumable that gives you a 5-second reload on your torp tubes. Only has one set of tubes, but again, that's what the consumable is for. But really, you don't even really need to use any of that besides the smoke, and then just hold down mouse 1, and there you've done made your profit for the match with the Kitakaze here. And that brings us down to our number 1 spot, which is held by the one, the only, the Louisiana, the American Tier 10 hybrid battleship. Now, I hear you typing, Sealord, Louisiana's getting nerfed. Yes, it is. It's still probably going to be busted. Why? Well, right now this thing's pretty broken because the reticle for Louisiana is so small on the aircraft that you can essentially drop the bombs on DDs with incredible regularity, especially if you are good at carriers. The reticle is also small enough that you can pretty much assure that you're going to hit heavy cruisers and even light cruisers and remove like half of their HP. And it fits within pretty much every battleship that it's going to see, so you can decide, I want to chunk the GK here for 15k in 2 or 3 fires, or I want to, remove, let's see, a third of the Massachusetts' HP, let's take it out on, this part of the deck or whatever. It is that accurate. It's crazy how accurate the planes are. Now, again, like I said, they are nerfing the reticle to be more along the lines of the Delaware than Nebraska, so it's going to be a little bit bigger, but the bombs are still good, so it's not going to really affect it in a huge way, in my opinion. But the real power from the Louisiana comes from the ability to simply spot. And since matchmaking doesn't seem to take the fact that this is a hybrid ship, or, well, any of the hybrid ships' hybridness, into account when it does do the matchmaking for the match, you wind up in situations where one team will have no carrier, but neither will the enemy team, but look, they have a Louisiana, and you don't. So now they have spotting, and you don't. In those situations, it's outright busted. Is that necessarily the ship's fault? You could argue that it's not, but it's the one that's causing these situations to happen. So, yeah, that, and of course the fact that it does still have 10 American 16-inch guns on top of the midway bombs. It's just crazy to get that much damage output on a ship that is, well, in this game, but I guess that's going to be the future for the game going forward with the way wargaming is going. But right now, before the reticle nerf, it is absolutely busted in my opinion. And in my review, I said I thought it wasn't necessarily busted because it is pretty easy to farm the thing down once you do find it. But the Louisiana players seem to have gotten that solved by simply, well, not pushing up until the last few minutes of the game, which, yeah, you can definitely do that, and with the guns and the planes still easily have 150,000 damage done if you really know what you're doing. So yeah, but yeah, if you do catch them, they are easy to farm down. Not only Louisiana, but of course, you know, the Nebraska and the Delaware as well. But just a crazy ship that I'm not sure how it made out of testing with that intact. But that is what it is. And again, thankfully it is getting nerfed, and hopefully we might get some changes to the spotting mechanics. They had that one dev blog that came out some time ago, but we haven't really heard much since then. But yeah, here's hoping. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. But guys, I hope you have a wonderful Monday, a wonderful rest of your week, and a wonderful 4th of July for my fellow Americans out there. And hope to catch you guys in the next one.